team that you have on your hat. And I'm going to let you take the lead just because it is your team, bro. The 3-point plan for the Miami Dolphins offseason. What you got, brother?
Fantastic. So, like you said, off the top, the recurring theme is going to be the offensive line. And offensive line is number one. So there's like 1A, 1B, and then there's 3. So it's the offensive line as 1A because the last couple of drafts, they have not hit on this at all. The Austin Jackson being picked 13th overall a couple of years ago is the draft pick that I will never forget next to Laramie Tunsil when he came out, because the analysis on NFL Network, I will never forget this, is Daniel Jeremiah was like, oh yeah, Austin Jackson out of offensive tackle out of USC. Yeah, definitely have like a first round grade, ish on him. He's definitely a developmental project. And at that point, I turned the TV off, Jay, because in my opinion, you shouldn't be taking a developmental project in the first round, especially when the year before you tanked to get all these draft picks and have a higher draft picks in the first round, and it didn't pan out. So they're gonna have to figure something out, whether or not that's in free agency or in the draft. I feel like they might go in the free agent pool. I'm not expecting Orlando Brown, which is one of the top free agents on the offensive line, to be available. I think.
How about Mike McGlinchey?
I could buy that. I could live with it. I mean, at this point, anything
he's coming from that offense.
Anything is better than what they have out there right now. And,
let me give you my point one as well, just because we're talking about tackles and offensive linemen. I also number one point for the Dolphins is to draft a tackle with pick 52. Like you've got to be able to protect Tua at all costs. Like you can't get him banged up out there, especially with the amount of concussions he has. At the moment, a person that looks good for you guys, a tackle out of Syracuse. His name is Matthew Bergeron. He could be a good fit. Could be a future left tackle. I mean, good solid tackle, can play anywhere in the NFL, truthfully, in my opinion. Just some stats for you guys: 12 pressures on 392 pass blocking snaps for an 80.9 pass blocking grade. So he comes fairly well,
perfect.
Statistically. Yeah, exactly.
Perfect. Because I was just going to say, Tua can take all the judo classes that he wants. That's not going to matter when you have Von Miller screaming at you off your blind side or whatever. So, no, they definitely need to address the offensive line. 1B is the defensive secondary because, Xavier Howard Jesus, is getting up there in age. And Byron Jones sounds like he's not going to come back. A couple of days ago, he was on Twitter kind of quote tweeting a video of him in the combine a couple of years ago. And he basically sounded like he can't even jump. He can't move, telling people. And that's not even paraphrasing. That's pretty much a direct quote. I can't jump. I can't move. I can't do any lateral stuff.
I lost it when you were talking in the group chat about how you can't jump. You can't run. And then what was the GIF you sent? It was like, this is all a lie or something?
No, it was from Monty Python and the Holy Grail. Yep. It was the Black Knight. 'Tis just a scratch. And he's like one arm, one leg. He's like hopping around.
I mean, he's making it sound like he can barely get out of bed in the morning. Like, I'm right. It's a tough game.
And then he tried to walk it back, but it's, he wasn't available. He was coming off of an Achilles injury the year prior. That's a free agent miss on Chris Greer's, resume at this point. Is they gave him a boatload of money coming out of Dallas. And I mean, you probably got a handful of games out of him. And just the rest of that secondary, Igahimabine, I'm probably butchering his last name, but I mean, let's be honest, he hasn't been on the field enough to really get the pronunciation right. So they definitely, since day one, Brian Flores drafted him and he was barely on the field. Like, I don't understand why they drafted him if he's just going to be in the doghouse all the time. And then he was, kind of in the doghouse with Mike McDaniel from time to time. I mean, they were the walking wounded in that secondary, and somehow he still did not find a way to get on the field. And when he did, he, had a tendency of getting burned every now and then. So
my second point is also the same as yours. Like, you've got to have Vic Fangio somehow shore up that defense, especially the back end of that defense. That cornerback safety spot, I think there's a good chance you guys are going to overhaul that whole secondary in the draft and free agency. And with Vic Fangio being out there, his ability to scheme up, provide different looks, confuse quarterbacks, him with some new talent could do wonders for you guys. So that's also my second. We're kind of like I here with
I
with
know,
the three
right?
point plan.
And then the last one for me, it's on the offensive side of the football. It's the tight end position because
Nice. This is where we
Mike
differ.
Mike Gesicki is going to walk in free agency. I don't think they're going to tag him again. And I mean, let's be honest, in the Kyle Shanahan, Mike McDaniel tree of the offensive scheme, you need to have a tight end that's willing to block. And Gesicki is not one of those tight ends that's going to block. To me, he's kind of a low rent, poor man's, Jimmy Graham type of deal where you can line him up outside, you can line him up inside, but like he's really not going to be the best blocker. I think you need to find someone with the skill set, which I understand is easier said than done, of a George Kittle that is willing to do the dirty work and is also able to run and be nimble on his feet. I think that's something you're going to need to address because everything else, like in the wide receiver position, to me is fine. The running back situation, you're going to have to address that because the two guys that you have are going to walk in free agency in Raheem Mostert, and I believe Jeff Wilson Jr. is eligible for free agency. I don't think they're going to spend to keep those guys. But I definitely address the tight end position so the offense functions a little bit more smoothly.
So my last point is going to be to find a viable backup for the inevitable Tua concussion that's going to happen.
Oh, you don't want Teddy Two Gloves? I love Teddy Two Gloves.
No.
Mr. Glass Jr.
No. Teddy Two Gloves, Skylar Thompson, those guys, they need it. All right. Like you've got to go the route of the 49ers. You've got to take a Brock Purdy-esque quarterback in the 6th or 7th round that can be serviceable, that can jump in, win some games for you guys, hold the fort down. Because let's be real, Tua, I know he's taking judo classes to fall properly and not get concussed. He's still going to end up getting hurt next year. That's just the knock on him. You've got to equate that. You got to basically, factor that in. So a guy to watch, teams that are going to be lining up left and right, is Stetson Bennett, Georgia quarterback, in the 6th or 7th round. Like he is somebody that I have both for the Dolphins and a little preview for next segment against the Patriots as well. Teams need to start looking at this guy just because there's this knock on him that he's on a loaded team and that's why he won. But in reality, the guy does make some big ballsy plays. Like there's times this year where, like, put it this way, if he was a couple inches taller and had 10 more pounds of muscle on, we'd be talking about him like he was Joe Burrow or Andrew Luck. Sincerely, I believe that wholeheartedly. He'd be the next Trevor Lawrence if he had some weight to him and some height to him.
There were people, not to turn this into like a college football podcast for a minute, but like there were people comparing his comeback in the playoff game to something Tom Brady would do. Like they literally were comparing that mental aspect of his game to Tom Brady. And whenever I hear that, like I just roll my eyes because it's kind of like, oh man, it's like it's Mahomesian like or whatever. But like when you look at that game and I mean, at how bad like Georgia was in that first half, and Stetson Bennett was. I mean, he was probably at the top of that list of being terrible. I mean, he threw that team on his back in the fourth quarter and willed them back into that game. So that was the one time I could buy the comp